Last season, I added these 6 discs to my bag, and every one of them made it in because of how impressed I was after learning about it in one of our videos. But now that it's been a few months, were they really worth adding to my bag, or did I just get caught up in the hype? Let's find out, because the disc is in the details. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs, and after making a video every single week, where we test anywhere from 1 to 40 discs or more, it's not hard to occasionally come across something that I really like. In fact, on several occasions last year, I took a disc straight from a video we made and put it in my bag. And these are those 6 discs. They cover the full spectrum in disc golf, from a 2-speed putter to a 12-speed driver, from a very overstable low-glide disc like this, to a floaty neutral mid-range like this. But my question is, after quickly adding them to my bag, are they still as good as I remember? Do they really deserve to keep a spot in my bag? Today I'm going to find out by revisiting all 6 of these discs and taking a closer look to see if they keep their spot or not. First up, we'll take a look at the most recent addition to my bag, the ultralight inner core from Trash Panda. Jesse from Trash Panda kindly sent us one of their 5-packs from 5 discs in 5 days, even after they were technically sold out. So we could try out their ultralight inner core, super plastic ozone, rubber canyon, and more. And while all of the discs had their merits, the ultralight inner core was perhaps the most fun. It was just so much fun to throw. Josh and I were tossing it back and forth, and it just felt like a perfect warm-up disc at only 116 grams, so I stuck it straight into my bag. Now, there were questions like, would I actually use this disc on the course? And I think those are similar questions that a lot of people got about the glitch or the spore. And the answer is maybe, because look at how effortlessly it flies. Nice and straight with low power. Or how easily you can throw a smooth turnover. Heck, it's even good for straight approach shots like this. Should you use it on a windy day? Absolutely not. But is it good enough to keep a spot in my bag? You bet. But what about a disc I added to my bag way back in the spring? The Climo discs Osprey. Rated at 10.6, -3.1, the Osprey was one of the first discs I picked out to fill a slot in my forehand only bag. But now that I'm back to throwing some backhands, can the Osprey still hold down a spot in my bag? But first, why did I add it in the first place? Well, pretty simple. If I'm throwing only forehands, I need a disc that can still create this shot, a standard stock right-handed backhand hyzer. And the Osprey was able to do pretty much exactly that. But taking a look at it now in present day, it's still pretty happy to turn on forehand. Though to be honest, it was so cold on this particular day, I struggled to get clean releases with my forehands. And I don't doubt what it can do on forehand. I'm more curious if it'll actually turn on backhand. And this is pretty much exactly what I want to see. First, it actually gets turn, but it doesn't turn so fast that it can't get decent distance. And that's exactly what I want from an understable disc. So the Osprey will be keeping its spot as well. From a flippy driver to a much beefier one, this is the Streamline Turbulence. The Turbulence was a featured disc in our Flight Numbers Don't Matter video all about thumb tracks and surface technologies. MVP's first driver to incorporate a thumb track or inverted flight plate, the Turbulence was impressive. It's overstable, it has very little glide, and it seemed like the perfect fit for my forehand. But what's interesting about the Turbulence is what makes it different from the rest of these discs, which is the fact that it technically already lost its spot in my bag. At the time, it didn't really feel different enough from my Discmania Skywalker FD1. But when picking out discs for this video, I pulled it off the shelf because I really liked it when I first threw it. So maybe it can earn a spot back in my bag. Maybe. On a flat forehand, the Turbulence pretty quickly fights out and fades aggressively. And if you crank over on it, it still fights out. Pretty impressive stability. But is it any good on the course? Let's find out by taking it out to 2 holes at our local course where I would normally throw a slightly overstable forehand shot. Here it gives me a circle's edge putt for birdie. And even better here, we're just 20 feet from the pin for another birdie putt. So as far as I'm concerned, the Turbulence has rightly earned a spot back in my bag. And that's 3 for 3 so far, but we still have 3 discs to go. And before we get there, a quick reminder that if you like the content we create, you can support us by becoming a channel member and getting some great perks like discounts from our website, sixsideddiscs.com. You can also support us by coming to see us at the Disc Golf Expos. We'll be at Disc East in late January and Disc South in early March. More information on the expos as well as tickets is at discgolfexpos.com. Now back to the discs with a brand we tested earlier this year, making 3D printed PDGA approved discs, the Ash from Forge Discs. Now I'll admit the first time I got my hands on the Ash, I thought it was a putter, and I'm honestly using it more like a putter than a mid-range, or I guess approach might be more accurate to say. I really like it for slow, straight forehand shots that favor accuracy over distance, and preferably shots that require a lot less fade than my Castoplast yarn. Now, when we first took a look at Forge, we had picked up just a few samples from them at Ledgestone, and I was immediately impressed, even though at the time I knew nothing about 3D printing. Now, I know a lot more about 3D printing, but I'm still impressed by Forge discs, which is why the Ash has become one of my favorites. I've been bagging this Blue Glow Ash for quite a while now, and here's why. On a slight forehand anhyzer, it slowly fights back to flat. Out on the course, if I throw it flat, it can gently fade to the basket. Now, I know that it works fine on like a full power backhand, but that's not why it's in my bag, and that's not what I intend to use it for. So the Ash is definitely keeping its spot in my bag for exactly this. A disc that's definitely not guaranteed a slot in my bag is this, the retooled Axiom Time-Lapse. We tested the Proto Time-Lapse a while back in a video, but we technically haven't thrown the new Time-Lapse on our channel. I grabbed this one at Ledgestone and tossed it in my bag to give it a try. And first impressions were something along the lines of, whoa, beef. But that's kind of what I was looking for. In my bag, I have 2 Latitude 64 Rives, which are my max distance forehand drivers. They're overstable, but not so much so that they can't get some turn to maximize distance. Below that in speed and stability, I have the Trail, and that leaves quite a big gap there for something a little bit slower, but also maybe more overstable. Hence why the time-lapse seemed like a good idea. But so far, I'm not seeing a lot of consistency from it. If I crank over on it, it does eventually fight out, but not super quickly. And at least 20% of the time, I get early releases like this. The time-lapse just doesn't feel great on my forehand. And it's comically overstable on my backhand. So I'm afraid to say the time-lapse is probably going to lose its spot in my bag. But one disc that's definitely going nowhere is the Loop Discs Wonder. As far as I'm concerned, the Wonder is 2025's Disc of the Year. Unfortunately, most people won't have had a chance to throw it because it comes from a small new manufacturer in Australia, Loop Discs. And the 50 or so Wonders that were in stock at Infinite back when we made our video in the summer sold out in just a few hours. We only had 2. I kept one for myself, and I gave the other one to Josh, and I've been bagging mine ever since. And here's why. For a 5-speed mid-range, it gets a ton of glide and easy distance. It can get a little turn with minimal fade, but it can also fly super straight. If you put some turn on it, it will gently hold that anhyzer angle without overturning. And the plastic feels incredible. It's this perfect combination of grip and flex, and it reminds me a lot of some of the older blends of Innova Star plastic. I am a huge fan of the Wonder, and if you manage to find it in stock somewhere, get one. But not this one, because it is definitely keeping its spot in my bag. I'm really glad that I took the time to take a closer look at these discs. It's reassuring that they almost all feel like they still belong, But it's also something that I try not to do too much because I'm often too quick to blame a disc rather than blaming myself for a bad shot. How often do you all take discs out of your bag? And do you find yourself blaming the arrow instead of the archer? Let us know in the comments below. And also comment below what other tests and comparisons you'd like to see from us in the future. For Six-Sided Discs, I'm Greg, reminding you that sometimes before you can move forward, you have to take a quick look back. We'll see you in the next one. But what's interesting about the Turbulence and what's different to it about what? But now that I'm throwing some backhands is if you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or becoming a member. Your support makes this content possible.